Hello! Welcome to Galactic Initiative. I'm your host, Jeff. The Tribes of Tatooine. The second chapter of the Book of Boba Fett premiered yesterday. Unfortunately, due to time, distance, and a few other constraints, my usual guests couldn't join me for a long, in-depth review. However, I'll offer my thoughts and a few from David and Sean in this video. First, a quick recap. Boba brought his captive to Mok Shaiz, the mayor of Mos Espa. Mok killed the assassin, provided a small bounty for the victim's arrest, and suggested a visit to Garsa Fwip's sanctuary casino for answers. Boba and Fennec took the suggestion, but immediately after their arrival, they returned to the street to meet a pair of huts known as the Twins, Jabba's cousins. The duo tried legal documents and threats to convince Boba to leave Jabba's former territory, but Boba refused. When confronted with imminent bloodshed, the Twins decided to go. In his back-to-tank, Boba's flashback continued. He joined the Tusken Raiders as a member of their tribe. A repulsor lift train of Sansana spice guarded by free-shooting pikes rumbled through their territory. Many raiders were killed by blaster fire. Boba went to Anchorhead for the tools to stop the train. He encountered and defeated Nikto from the Swoop Bike gang and took their machines. A select group of Tuskens trained with Boba to operate them. In the climax, the tribe attacked and destroyed the train. The surviving Pikes were threatened to pay a toll for passage across the Tuskens' land, and sent away on foot to Anchorhead. Boba received a small lizard in his nose, completed a vision quest, and came back with a tree branch, which he subsequently crafted into a gaffy stick. The tribe danced with him around a fire to celebrate his achievement. Recap over. For me, the opening in Mos Espa was the best part. I'm more interested in Boba's role as a crime lord than his experiences with the Sand People. I realize the two will be connected later. As I've said before, I'm struggling with the Tuskens as victims. The flashback narrative hasn't captured my imagination. Black Krrsantan in live action was exciting. I loved the depiction. The height, the dark fur, the wicked glare. I want the bounty hunter and new crime lord to square off at some point. If you'd like to meet him, you can find this dangerous Wookiee in the Dr. Aphra comics. The Twins' appearance was unexpected and welcome. Nice to see actual villains. I'm anxious to learn about these characters, and I'm hoping for Nal Hutta in the near future. I've always wanted to experience that planet beyond animation. The episode took us to Tosche Station in Anchorhead, one of Luke Skywalker's former haunts. We met Cammy and Fixer, two of Luke's old acquaintances. The Nikto gang was bullying them. I wasn't sorry for Fixer. If you watched the deleted scenes from A New Hope and listen to the original Star Wars radio drama, you'll understand my lack of sympathy. I recommend both. Based on last week's aesthetics, viewers understood different tribes of Tuskens inhabited Tatooine. Chapter 2 confirmed a diversity of raiders. I'm wondering, like all of you, what distinguished Boba's tribe. I offered a theory in my last review, but the credits definitely canceled it. Check out the previous show. I posted a link in the description. Don't get me wrong, the BOBF's emphasis on Tuskens has been educational. I relished the lizard trip and weapon craft, but I'm struggling to contextualize most of Boba's flashback in the Star Wars galaxy. I've spoken about the Jawas and Tuskens before. The off-world Jawas in The Mandalorian looked and behaved according to Lucas's design. The Tuskens in The Mandalorian did not. The Jawas and Tuskens in the Book of Boba Fett have not. They've interfered with my suspension of disbelief at several key moments. People may accuse me of being stuck in the past, but the past imparts Lucas's purposefulness. He didn't start with an idea for an action sequence and try to build a story around it. For example, a train in the desert might look cool, develop a historical theme, and facilitate action. But does it really make sense in Star Wars, where flying vehicles of all shapes and sizes are available? Furthermore, the Tuskens would have been invisible to the train's occupants if they were wearing the desert camouflage of their predecessors. Was the group's well-established cunning and stealthiness sacrificed to generate pity from viewers as the action sequence unfolded? The darker robes look great, but did they make sense for these Tuskens who live on the desert sands? Perhaps the flashback pushed the Old West and going native tropes a bit too far. The shooting of bison from a moving steam train for sport, encroachments and other land disputes, spiritual truth, the gauntlet, mastery of obsolete weapons, traditional integrity versus modern greed, and more. Films like The Last Samurai, Avatar, and Dances with Wolves were successful, but I find myself wondering as I watch, does the storyline work for Star Wars? A definite answer might come when the Book of Boba Fett ends, be it with a flourish or a fizzle. On a scale of 1 to 10, my rating is 3. I learned more about Boba's past and new villains surfaced, but the flashback was problematic, and we are still missing the show's raison d'etre. David wrote, I gave the first chapter only a 3 out of 10. Thank goodness we had a new director. With his Mandalorian episode and last week's episode, Rodriguez has shown an inability to direct Star Wars. This chapter was a solid 7 or 8. Despite being 51 minutes, it didn't feel longer in comparison. I counted 3 montages, but, for once, they didn't bother me because they were informative. I enjoyed the martial arts in Boba's training. He and his teacher were practicing forms, which my boys do in their classes. My favorite part was the twins. As Sean said, subtitles for those not speaking basic would be helpful. I laughed at the guys who held the litter for the entire scene. It was bowed under the weight, and in my opinion, understaffed. I thought Boba stole 4 swoop bikes, but brought 5 to the Tusken camp. My math might be fuzzy. I didn't understand the train situation until after Boba negotiated with the Pikes. At the end, he explained the deal. The Banthas fell with only 1 shot each. I think heavier fire would be necessary. I predict Garsa Fwip and the Mayor's Major Domo are conspiring together. Sean wrote, Boba's attempt to discover the assassin's employer in the first portion of the episode was fantastic. It featured subterfuge and some nice deep dives into the expanded universe and a deleted scene from A New Hope. The cinematic canonization of Black Chrysanthemum was wonderful. He is one of the more interesting characters from the modern Marvel comics. I look forward to seeing a dynamic between these two play out. The Hutt's return was also fantastic. It established high stakes for Boba as he tried to claim the title of Daimyo. Boba's spirit world journey over the final 35 or so minutes was long and heavy-handed with its Western tropes. The so-called civilized, riding a train through the frontier, shooting buffalo for sport, and killing perceived savages was a platitude from American history. This chapter continued the Tuskens' rehabilitation, which we have lamented before as running contrary to Lucas's conception. The episode even included a sweat lodge scene where a tribal leader stated Boba's tribe was peaceful, unlike other tribes. The claim of peacefulness would have meant more without prior captivity and beatings, but reasons. Clearly, the enlightened native concept is heavily utilized in the Filoniverse. The train vignette gave an important indicator of the show's future direction by involving the Pike Syndicate. I anticipate a serious Five Families vibe in the remaining episodes. I foresee the reintroduction of Crimson Dawn to compete with the Hutts, Pikes, and Trandoshans, in addition to the Mayor, as well as the conclusion of the Tuskens' redemption arc. They will probably save Boba in the end. Now the question is whether or not Qi'ra will return. She was the centerpiece of Marvel Comics' recent War of the Bounty Hunter series, which might turn out to be a multimedia marketing strategy. Cammy and Fixer at Tashi Station were fun, though the actors were a bit young for their roles. For fans of the original radio drama, please check out our shows about it. Their appearance reinforced Big's message to Luke. Some people don't have the capacity and/or ambition for growth and adventure. Cammy and Fixer had spent their entire lives in that small town, and courtesy of the Nikto, almost died there. All in all, I felt this episode was better than the first, but still contained a number of flaws. The aliens and callbacks to the OT, Attack of the Clones, Clone Wars, and comics created a stronger Star Wars feel. The dialogue in Mos Espa and the Palace was great. Fennec Shand is becoming a favorite character. The overdone tropes and long scenes with the Tuskens were just unnecessary. Still no justice for the Sarlacc, though we saw another clip. I felt I was watching a mashup of Dances with Wolves, Young Guns, and about half a dozen other westerns. My rating is 7 out of 10. Honestly, if I could go back, my score for the first chapter would be 5 instead of 6, and my score for the second chapter would be 6 instead of 7. In short, this episode was slightly better. Thank you, David and Sean, for your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please consider a thumbs up.
Galactic Initiative is not authorized or endorsed by Lucasfilm Limited. The name Star Wars and all related materials are registered trademarks of Lucasfilm Limited, a subsidiary of the Walt Disney Company, all rights reserved. Galactic Initiative is a registered trademark, and other product and company names are trademarks of their respective holders. Use does not imply affiliation or endorsement.